Hey guys, this is Amanda Forster with the Roanoke Regional Small Business Development Center, and welcome to our Casual Friday today. If you're not familiar with the SBDC, we do pro bono advising for entrepreneurs and small business owners. Really, we take care of the business so that you can take care of your big idea, and that's our goal. We can help you with the entire journey of your business, and that's kind of what we do in the background. But what we're here today to do is to bring you resources that are going to be very helpful that you might not otherwise have access to. And today we have an incredible guest that I'm really excited about because she has an expertise that we do not have an expertise in. Although many of us have had employees, we may not have done that the best because we weren't HR professionals. And so we have Jennie Weeks with us today. I'll introduce her just here shortly to talk about HR type topics. But first I want to share Heather with you, Heather Fay, who is our regional program director and our advisor for our Bottom clients. And we're just so excited to have her on, but she also makes all this work. So what you see here is not simple, and she makes it all happen and coordinates this. And so thank you, Heather, for doing that.
Welcome.
And so without further ado, our guest today that we're so excited about is Jennie Weeks. She is the Vice President of Human Resources for the YMCA for Virginia's Blue Ridge. And so Jennie, I've seen your LinkedIn profile. You've always been in HR, it looks like, and you've just kind of climbed the ranks. And now you're with YMCA of Virginia's Blue Ridge, which is so exciting that we have such high caliber of talent here to help us. So welcome, and thank you for joining us and taking time out to be with us here today.
My pleasure. Good morning.
I'm so excited. I can't stand it. So Jennie, right now we always have a lot of HR topics to talk about, but obviously with COVID-19 and some of the things that people are experiencing, they've had to lay employees off, or have them working from home. And so there's a lot of transitioning happening right now as some of the restrictions are being lifted, but also obviously we need to still consider safety. We are still in a COVID-19 environment. It has not gone away. And so there's just so much. I mean, we could probably talk for hours around HR topics, but I want to focus today on really that kind of component of it, the part that like people are bringing employees back and how do they handle that. It's not quite as easy as just calling them up and saying, let's go, office is open, right?
Yeah.
So as they're starting to bring staff back, whether they're bringing them back because they haven't been working or they're bringing them back from remote work, what are some things that they should think about communicating to their employees, really?
The main thing to communicate when asking people to come back and doing the return to work call are the safety procedures that have been put in place during the shutdown. I think a lot of people are really concerned of what's that going to look like when they get back. Some people are comfortable with the mask, some people are not comfortable with the mask. And the caveats to that, and that where it gets really tricky is, like in our industry, we are for the most part member facing, we're guest facing. And so the mask is really important. All the science right now is pointing to that the mask is effective. So that is really something, a lot of people are comforted by that. I'm noticing as we're calling people back, that was one of the questions I got most often was, will we be requiring the mask?
Mm-hmm.
And so us and a lot of other businesses are really doing our best to be sure that the masks are being worn and being worn properly.
And so, Jennie, is all of your staff going to be wearing or are wearing masks and will continue to wear masks?
Yes, for the foreseeable future until the Department of Health says that they are no longer needed.
Mm-hmm.
As with any company, we do have some that for medical reasons are not able to wear a mask. And we've been, talking with those individuals on a case-by-case basis. And of course, if it's going to cause more harm to them, that's fine. But we do want to make sure that they're in an environment in which they are able to maintain that safe distance.
That's a good point. That's a great point. If they're not able to wear a mask, there could be other things that could be a safety risk to them because of that condition. So first and foremost, thank you for having your staff wear masks. I personally get so nervous when I go into businesses. I don't patron many inside, but
Hmm.
when I do and they don't have on masks, I just want to turn around. And that's me. So I know everyone has a different opinion about that, but thank you. I think you are in the health and fitness industry and wellness industry. And I think, I just really appreciate that. So thank you for being a leader in that area. So I love that. So for communicating, the return to work is like talking to employees or making sure you're communicating what are you doing to make the workspace safe for them.
Hmm.
What are there any, and here's where this question's coming from. I've received some communications recently, like just in the last week or so, whether it be from a school or another organization that my family might be part of. And the emails were a little boastful of like, we're private companies, here's what we're doing, but it was very, very lax, right? And I know as a consumer, I can choose, okay, I don't have to participate in that if I'm not comfortable. But I thought about myself as an employee, right? And the emails seemed kind of boastful. Are there things that people should stay away from? Or like, how can you be more comforting, right? Like, you have your safety policies in place and not everyone is going to feel comfortable with them. But how do you share those with confidence? Like, do you have any best practices or things to stay away from?
As far as communicating with our staff about
Yeah.
what our safety protocols are. So we really took advantage of the time when we were closed because the Y itself was not able to reopen until phase 2. So we really had a lot of time there that we were able to retrain our staff and communicate our plans that were going to be intact. And during our closure, we had time to make the sneeze guards and to get everything in place. Now, was it perfect? Absolutely not. I mean, in this situation, there is no, well, during the last pandemic, this is what we did. So we've had a lot of, navigating this as we go, reaching out to our contacts that we have in other places. Otherwise, I mean, luckily for us, the YMCA is, an international company and organization. And for the first time in history, this is something that impacted the entire world. So we really had a good support structure going on. So for small companies that would not have that, I mean, just having something like this is a great tool for them to work out. But our biggest thing was communicating it and having consistency across the board.
I like the consistency key. It's probably huge.
Right.
A
It made
lot
it
of,
easier to communicate not only to our staff, but then what we were putting out for our members who were ready to come back. And even those that were kind of on the fence about should I come back, having that consistency across the board about what we were doing to clean, how we were spacing our equipment, what would be required of them to come in, were we temperature checking our staff, which we are. But all those were just good things to put out into place. And then, I mean, you just got to make sure it's going on, and we're all doing our
yeah,
best to do that.
that I love the consistency could also potentially, and I assume it does, create confidence, consumer confidence, right? Because you're just being consistent. This is what's happening. And it sounds like you all have been detailed in that too. Like you've talked about how far is the equipment going to be spaced. Like that's detailed
Right.
to me, right? Like I'm not
It
even
really
sure I
is. And
about
it's all over our buildings. We couldn't maintain the proper space, that 10-foot distance in the wellness center itself. And because, for instance, pickup basketball, it's a shared ball. So we can't have that team sport going on right there. So we used half of our gymnasiums in some branches to go ahead and like move our bikes and treadmills and some of that stuff out, because wellness is a good thing. And this is a great time especially to be paying attention to that. So anything we can do to allow more people in the building and to use those memberships and keep
that's
themselves well is a good thing.
I love that you've been creative in that. It's like you got to find space, right? Because
Right.
the more people you can offer services to, obviously, the better. Not only from a business standpoint, but like you said, you're in the health and wellness industry, which should be top of our mind right now. So it's a great opportunity for people to do that. And I love that creativity of figuring out where do we have space, what can't we do, and what can we move into that space that would be helpful. And that goes across all industries, retail, restaurants, they're all having to figure out how do I reconfigure my space.
Hmm.
So it's interesting to see that even someone that we consider the YMCA is large, like you said, it's an international organization, are thinking about those things. So can we switch for a minute to remote working?
Hmm.
I know it looks like you're working from your home today or
I am.
somewhere today, not in the office. Um, did you guys go to remote working right away? Like, what did that look like for you? I mean, that's kind of, it's weird in the health and fitness industry, right? Because you're a member facing organization. What did that look like in the beginning?
Right. So the governor's order came out on March 17th, and that is when we closed our doors. So those of us who were, working what you would call like the regular office jobs, we were able to move that home and work remotely. We've been very fortunate over the past several years that all of the upgrades and software changes we've made have allowed for us to be 100% remote when we need to be. So that has been really good for us. Unfortunately, that's along with many other companies, those that were member facing or, more operational part-time jobs, those did go into a furlough situation. But yes, in the background, all of us were able to remote work. And then as we got close to reopening and, during that time we had PPP money, which did allow us to bring back some who were comfortable to do some projects in there and things that we could do safely while maintaining proper space and also wearing the mask and doing that. So we were actually able to make a lot of improvements that really just needed manpower and not so much the dollars.
I love that.
Moving things around.
I love hearing these stories. I think we should do a whole session on stories of what people did during the downtime, because so many are like not completely renovating their space, but painting or doing things that don't
Right.
cost a lot of money, but using
And cleaning,
staff.
the deep clean that you can't necessarily do when the wellness centers are full.
That's right. So did you guys, with your deep cleaning, did you guys do that yourself? Did you have staff come in that was comfortable and obviously with the guidelines in place, do that deep cleaning?
We did. In fact, the Kirk Family YMCA in downtown Roanoke, in fact, moved a bunch of the equipment around in the Kirk Family in that wellness center. And it's a kind of funny now, like all the blowers came out and we, got all that dust up off the rafters that then came down and then cleaning that and they painted. I mean, it's really a refreshing, it's a very welcoming space.
Oh, that's cool. I mean,
So we really made the best of that.
I'm gonna have to come visit. I love that. So just for a little history, back in the day, I used to work for the YMCA as a fitness instructor.
Oh, very nice.
Not here in
Where did
Roanoke.
you teach?
I was in Reston,
Okay.
Reston, Virginia, but I did kickboxing and step. And at the time it was called Rep Reebok. Reebok, I don't think does that anymore. I think it's moved to like Les Mills Body Pump and some other thing.
Right.
That tells you how old, how long ago that's been. I'm trying to think what else. Oh, Zumba. I did everything as a college student. That was just something that I did on the side. So anyway, I love the YMCA. And okay, so the remote working, what are you guys doing going forward now? Like obviously you guys are able to reopen at a capacity and that's going to increase here very soon, July 1st.
Right, so we'll be at 75% capacity at that time.
That's going to be great. What are you guys doing with remote work during that time? Are some folks still going to remotely work, or is everybody going back to the office? Like, what is that looking like right now? And maybe
so we're doing exactly what the governor said. We are remote working where it is feasible. Like I myself am kind of splitting my time back and forth. Those that are member facing, of course, that they don't have the option really of working from home, but for those that do have the option, and from time to time, we're trying to be as relaxed as we can be with that.
That's fantastic. And then I assume just going forward until that's lifted, right? Like you'll just continue to.
Correct. Right. And I mean, and another thing is, with school systems are coming out with their plans and we're trying really hard to work with people with their schedules and really just trying to make the best of that.
So I'm curious, this is a tad bit off topic, but there are probably some people who are going to be watching this that would be interested in this with the kids. I know, at least at the Kirk, I'm not sure about the others, have programs for kids. Are those running right now?
They are. So as soon as we closed, we quickly roundtabled and began offering emergency childcare to frontline workers. So, obviously healthcare workers or grocery workers, anybody that was deemed an essential business. We were there for them. And that happened at, across the association. And that has now turned in, then, well, let me rephrase that, then went to, as the governor put it, childcare for working families. And now that's being lifted, and it is just back to our normal childcare. But we have been doing that the whole time, and that will continue.
That's incredible. I know we have some clients who were not able to do that, and then they did start doing it kind of in the same shoes and building that up. So that's helpful to know. So can we kind of round back to preparedness for returning to work, not only for employees, but in your case, because you guys are so customer facing, we could, throw that in there. How did you all approach the whole preparedness and planning for that? We talked about, it's important to communicate what the safety protocols you were putting in place, but how did you figure out what those were and what was right for the YMCA? Because there's guidelines, right? And we can use those, but they're not necessarily complete for each industry. So what
right, and they are on a case-by-case basis as we go through this, really. So what we did was come up with our scenario planning tool, and I don't know, this is good. But we have this whole grid of what happens if they're like, do you have a household member that traveled to an at-risk country, which right now travel is kind of shut down, but this is going to keep going, and eventually travel is going to open back up. But like household members, direct exposure versus an indirect exposure, and in what setting were they in? So we have this whole thing of, what was the exposure? What's the recommended employee action? What is the wise action? And then what happens to that person's income after that? And all of that ties back into the FFCRA and all of that good stuff that's been out there. And really letting people know what their resources are and what their options are, because this can really, COVID can happen to anybody, even those that are being extremely careful.
Yeah.
I mean, you just...
I love that. And I don't know that I thought about this before. I love that you included in your plan. One, Heather and I, when you showed us that grid, we're like, oh, be still my heart. We love documents and structure. But I'm fascinated with, because it's something that I think employers are responsible for, is the well-being of their employees, not only health-wise, but mentally. And I think sharing those, like, case by case, this is what that looks like, and here's what happens to income, and here are the resources you have available to you. Because we have to remember that when we start bringing people back to work, just as it is now, people are going to continue to get coronavirus. And I love that you've thought through what that's going to look like for your staff. I've seen a lot of these plans, quite frankly, and I have rarely seen that as part of them. So I love that, and I hope that anybody that's going to be watching this recording will take note of that. Like that's an important thing to really be on your employee side, right? And providing those resources. And maybe, Jennie, I hate to put you on the spot, but I also know that you are volunteering a little bit with us to help do some one-on-one advising for companies who might need just some advice around HR topics. If someone hasn't thought about that for their employees, but is curious about it, would you be willing to talk to them?
Certainly.
Just to share? Okay. So folks, if you're watching, we'll talk about this again at the end, but on our website, roanoksmallbusiness.org, go to our advising page. You'll see the menu at the top, advising, and you will find Jennie Weeks' beautiful photo there. And you can click, there's a little link under her name, and you can schedule with her right there on our website. So there's no back and forth. You just schedule right there. So if you want to take advantage of anything that we've talked about today, but I really think that's a missing resource for a lot of our small businesses, Jennie. So thank you for that. And I hope that some folks will reach out to you to talk about those options, especially small businesses who don't have robust plans for their employees, right?
Sure.
And it's a great time to start thinking
or
about
the team really to put those together too. Like this was not a one person job making this plan by any means. I mean, we've been really fortunate that, my colleagues and I have really, we work well together, and we're a great team, and this has not been a one person show by any means.
That's great to know. Heather and I talk about a lot. I need to watch my time. Sometimes I get off track here, but Heather and I talk a lot about it. It's lonely at the top when you're a business owner. You don't
Yeah.
feel like you have anyone to talk to. Sometimes you bring your team in to do things, and sometimes it's not appropriate to do that. And we love to encourage people, like, find a mentor, find other business owners, create your own little business owner team so that you can share resources like this, because it is possible, even for one person kind of teams, to reach out to other people and develop their own team. It's kind of like having a family that's not your family, right?
That's right.
But I love that you bring that up, because I think it's important. You happen to have that in-house, but it's possible for everyone. And obviously you guys just have an incredible amount of knowledge that a lot of our small business owners don't have access to. So we can't even thank you enough for volunteering with us. We just love that you're a resource. We talked a little bit about face coverings. People coming into the YMCA, your guests and members, will not have to wear face coverings, I'm assuming. I know that they've released some information that, like, working out with your face mask on is also not healthy. What is that? What's your take on that? What is that going to look like?
So we are currently asking people to wear the mask coming in.
Okay.
And then you can take it off when you get to your exercise station, whether that be a machine or if you're in one of our group exercise classes. We do offer a limited amount of classes that are taking place outside, which is really good, which you come to those and they're already set up for you. And then, with being outside and already maintaining that distance, there's a little bit more relaxation with the mask. But coming in, we do ask people to go ahead and put those on.
I love that, because a lot of, even our smaller gyms, when you go in, there's congregational area, right, where people are, like, putting their stuff in the lockers. So I love that something that you're asking people to do, because that's at the point. It's easy to control where the equipment is and how far apart that is, and it's easy to control a class, but that initial coming in and putting things up and locker room interactions aren't as not easy to control that. So that's a good point for people to kind of take away. So out of all the things that you guys have done, because you've done a lot, you've got this plan, you've done really good communication, you've been working with employees and staff, communicating with members. Out of all of that, what is, like, one thing you've implemented that you feel worked really well?
Well, one thing that we worked on before we reopened was what's our response system going to be when we get positives? Because I feel like this is going to be going on for months and months. We have no idea really when a vaccine will be in effect and how much of the vaccine will be available. So really just having all of these responses ready to go, and just
I love that.
Forming that crisis response team and having a decision tree, who to contact. That's been one of the things that has just given everybody a bit of confidence going into it, is there's a clear direction on who to call for what and who will round up the team if there's not a direct answer.
Oh my gosh, I love that. So I want to highlight that again, because this could be critical for just so many of our clients, our restaurant owners, retail owners, our manufacturers, everyone. Sometimes we think of ourselves as a small business, and a communication tree might be too much. But in this case, it's so good to have that clear, like, this is who you call. Maybe you would normally call this person, but for this, you're going to call this person, and this is how it's going to go. So I like the idea of pinpointing for everyone that's watching, like, that decision tree could be really important. And Jennie, refresh me here. So I think right now, organizations and businesses can develop their own plan for communicating if there is a positive case of coronavirus within the organization. But I also know that there is some bills on the table, particularly in Virginia, that might mandate that you have to communicate that you have a case. How can people navigate that right now? Is it just a decision within the organization how they're going to handle it? Or do you have any tips around that?
It really depends on the industry you're in. I tend to always think that transparency is the best policy there. It is better to hit it head on than someone finding out later and then the optics of that. I feel like we've been pretty prepared for anything that can come up our way, but I really think that just being transparent with maintaining privacy for the individual or individuals
Right.
involved, but acknowledging that there has been a positive case, and these are the steps that we've taken that we had already planned to take once that happened. Whether that be the deep cleaning and notifying those with direct exposure, and notifying the Virginia Department of Health. All of those steps are in place.
And I assume that that's probably in your decision tree, right? Like, are all those steps like, here's what we're going to do and here's the steps of that?
Correct. And who's going to make that call?
I love that. That's fantastic. Because we want to, everyone, that person needs privacy, and you want to protect that while also protecting your staff and public and making them knowledgeable of what's happened. Okay, good. I know that in the coming weeks, that's going to be probably a hot topic, at least for us at the SBC. We know we're going to have a lot of people who are going to reach out to us for those type of instances because it's so new to small businesses. Some of our larger organizations have dealt with other things like that. And really this will be the first time for many of our businesses having to do that. And I know we already have some restaurants and things in the area that have had to learn through that process, right? Okay, so I know we're coming up on our 30 minutes, and I promised it would be 30 minutes or less. So as we wrap up, is there a best practice that we haven't talked about, or a learning that we haven't talked about that you think would be helpful for businesses right now that you want to kind of end on?
I really just go back to the communication. That has been so key for us throughout this whole process. You make plans and plans and plans, and then something changes and you make more plans and more plans and more plans. And as redundant and as exhausting as that can be, it's really the best way to go forward. Plan and communicate, plan and communicate.
I love that. And we did a crisis communication Zoom session. It's probably been about 2 months ago, Heather.
Almost.
And so much has changed.
It has changed. Right. We talked a lot about just the structure, like how to put a communication plan together. So if anybody wants to check that out, it's on our website, RoanokeSmallBusiness.org, and it's also on our YouTube channel. So if anybody wants to rewatch that, it's really at the structural level, so you can kind of fill that in. With what's happening now. So one last question, I promise. This came out of your best practice. And this is just out of curiosity. At the YMCA, did you guys have a task force that was working on all this stuff in the background? Or did it fall in HR's lap? Like, how did you all handle
we
that?
formed a crisis response team, which is made up of a lot of our leadership staff. And we have worked together consistently. This was in no way just in my lap at all. We have had full involvement from our crisis response team throughout this. And without that kind of environment in the industry that we're in, it really would not work.
I love that. And that's what brought that up, is I know so many of our small businesses just don't have enough staff to have that. And so it's sparking some ideas in my head, Heather, sorry. I've got more ideas around that. I'm like, do we need to bring like industries together to have a task crisis team that they can all like work on this type of stuff together? So if you're out there watching and you think that would be helpful, let us know, because we could certainly do that and pull the right resources together. Okay, so I will wrap up now. Jennie, thank you so much for talking with me about all this. We could just dive into everything we talked about so much further, and maybe we'll do that in the future. But really what I want to highlight is anyone that's watching that would like to grab a glimpse of Jennie's knowledge and experience. She is available for some advising. We want to be respectful of her time, but if you need that, please reach out and get over on our website or our advising page and make some time with her. Or if you want to talk to us first and figure out, is that a right fit, feel free to reach out to us. You can get to us anywhere on our website, and just reach out to us and we'll go from there. Jennie, do you have a drink or anything close by?
On my second cup.
I love it. So we're going to do a big cheers. Heather, I know you have your big cup. So cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Well, see you next Friday. Thank you guys so much.
Bye. Thank you.
you.